So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My mic is not on. It's on? Okay. Okay. So, before I dive into my speech today, I want to ask all of you a question. What do you think this is? Thank you. Thank you. Oh! Okay. So, as some of you have already voiced it, exactly. This is the notorious GPA, grade point average. As most of us here probably already know, the grade point average is the mathematical mean value of all of our final grades in one semester. And in our school, that value ranges from 0 to 4.833. In short, the GPA seems to give each and every single one of us a value. And the current problematic understanding of a good student is that a good student is someone with a GPA above 4.3. Now let's look at this. Sports, arts, internship, and music. All of those are the so-called extracurricular activities. Now let's think about a real-life scenario. Let's say that I'm an art student that have won multiple art awards in painting competitions several times in my past. And I am known throughout the school for my achievements in art, but my GPA is a 2.9. Maybe it's because I didn't take enough honors classes. Maybe it's because I didn't manage to maintain my grades in my core classes while investing time in arts. Whatever reason it is, if I choose to compromise my investment of the time to pursue my passion in arts, but has a different GPA, a lower GPA as viewed by many, am I a good student? This is my topic for today. In a perfect world, what is a good student? Now, when I actually start to think about this topic, what is a good student, it's really hard for me not to flash back to my memories from my past experiences in my former school in Shanghai. So just a little bit of background on myself. Although I spent the first few years living in California, my primary education was primarily done in Shanghai due to my father's job movement. And let me describe to you what kind of an academic environment is there. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a picture that one of my classmates took on how many problem sets and worksheets she did for 1 year in middle school. Unfortunately, I didn't take a picture like that for my own worksheets and problem sets, but if I pile them up in this manner, you can imagine they're going to be the same amount. Now, those problem sets and worksheets are not like Princeton's or Barron's AP and SAT study guides, which has pure pages after pages of reading. Those problem sets and worksheets are pure pages after pages of problems. Now, every single day when I go home, I need to do 3 sets of Mandarin problem sets, 3 sets of English problem sets, 2 sets of math problem sets, and 2 more of either history, geography, or sciences. And on average, every single problem set takes approximately half an hour to 45 minutes. So 3 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 equals to 10 of them. Gives me approximately 5 to 6 hours of individual working time on my own problem sets. Now, I say those are my own problem sets and individual working because they're not assigned by any teacher. Those are not homework. But if we do talk about assigned problem sets and assigned homework, let me tell you that in a 45-minute class period, we spend the first 15 to 20 minutes talking about new materials or going over old materials. And then the rest of the period is, again, problem set working time. But this time, the problem sets are assigned homework. So when I got home, I need to take about 1 to 2 hours to finish up those problem sets assigned by the teachers that I started in the classes. And then I need to move on to my 5 to 6 hours of individual working. Now, you're probably looking at me as if I'm crazy. That's like 6 to 7 hours every day working on problem sets. You're probably questioning why I would ask for such trouble, why I would ask to do those extra work. You're probably categorizing me as a crazy tryhard. Well, maybe I am a crazy tryhard, but I'm definitely not crazy. This process is known throughout Shanghai. Doing such extraordinary amount of problems is a famous process in Shanghai education called shuati. Literal translation is brushing questions. Question here means a question or a problem on a problem set. And brushing means that you're just going through and doing so many of them that you're brushing through pages after pages of problems. Now, in Shanghai, barely anyone would question the legitimacy of this process or maybe my sanity, because Every single person, literally, every single person and every single student is doing it. Myself, everyone in my class, everyone in my grade, everyone in my school, everyone beyond my school, all of us do it just to get a better grade. Now, how do we get a better grade from this process called Shyu? It sounds insane, but it works. By the end of a unit, for example, I would have done more than 20 problem sets on this unit specifically. And what that means is I will be able to have identified every single type of question. And I will be able to instantly identify any trap or any trick in a question. So the reality is that when I see a question on a test, my hands instantly starts moving, and I instantly know what to do, and how many steps and what kind of steps I need to take to get me to the final answer. Now, the AI AlphaGo can beat human in Go because it crunches every single possibility into itself. So once the human makes a move, it instantly knows what to do just because it has seen it so many times. Same thing here in China. You know what to do just because you've seen it so many times. Now, there's still a possibility of me completely messing up. There's still a possibility that I just did not see that one specific type of question, or I just did not spot that one deadliest trap in a question. So I could still completely mess up. But the fear, ladies and gentlemen, of completely messing up further drives the process of the brushing of questions. Now, this is only what we do at home by ourselves, individual work. But if we actually look at the academic environment amongst our peers in Shanghai, it is never so clearly felt when a test rolls around and the results are being distributed and people start to compare grades. So here's an example of a normal daily conversation in that scenario. Well, this is just one of the most normal daily examples of a conversation that will happen when a test rolls around. Because normally when a test rolls around, people's grades tend to be really close to each other. And when the comparison happens, the one with the higher grade usually feels extremely good about themselves. And the one with the lower grade usually feels pretty bad. But the one with the lower grade also feels an urge to do better next time, in order to laugh at the ones that laughed at them this time. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the definition of a competitive cycle. Perhaps both vicious and virtuous. But recall that I started my speech talking about both grades and extracurricular activities. But notice that for the past few minutes that I've been talking about in my past experience in Shanghai, I did not talk about extracurricular activities. No, I did not forget. And you're correct. In my former understanding before I came to TAS, extracurricular activities is nothing compared to grades. It is even considered by some extreme ones just as a pathetic way for the ones who couldn't get a good grade to feel good about themselves elsewhere. So under that environment, to me and to my peers in Shanghai, being a good student equals to being someone that has good grades or someone that has better grades than others. But here I have to pause and point out that this definition is nothing inherently wrong. Although it might have created a competitive environment, but that competition ultimately is aimed to drive people's understanding of the subject materials. So now let's move on to my experience here at Taipei American School. So 3 years ago, I transferred to Taipei American School, and there were many, many hilarious moments when I experienced a clash. Well, if you know me in 8th grade, you would know that I complain about getting a 94. Well, there should be laughter now because that's stupid. Anyways, I do complain about a 94 because at that time I do reckon a 94 to be a pretty bad grade. Not because my standards are just sky high, but because that a 94 usually ends up in the lower parts of the comparison chain with my peers back in Shanghai. So I was also shocked here at how the specific programs and academic programs here look like. For example, math programs. I was shocked by how we actually started learning by understanding the concepts instead of learning how to solve a problem. And for humanities subjects as well, I was shocked at how much critical thinking we are allowed to do or we are required to do. We're not just being taught history facts or English terms. The curriculum, at least, is trying to get us to think about what we learned. So in a comparative scale, TAS opens a pretty different perspective for me on grades and academics. Although it still might have a certain focus on grades, on a comparative scale with my former school, it is much less than my former school. Instead, our school has more of a focus on extracurricular activities. Even I started tapping into some of the extracurricular activities in 8th grade. So here's a picture of me doing MUN for the first time in 8th grade in Malaysia. I still clearly remember one thing that my MUN director at that time told me, and that actually convinced me to join MUN. She said, "Your passion is a part of you, a very important part of you. And pursuing your passion is as important as maintaining your grades." I still remember that so clearly because it gave me a revelation of what I needed to be doing, and in part led me onto the direction that I'm heading right now in life, both passion and grades. However, later I am more and more involved into extracurricular activities, and here's a picture of me doing another MUN conference in Bangkok. This is the freshman class night last year. And Duke Mukor in Durham, another MUN conference here, and a concert last year, and also, of course, last month, Stanford Berkeley debate tournament. Again, just as I mentioned, although there still might be a certain focus on grades in TAS, our school is really trying to carry on the notion that school is designed to prepare us for life. Not for colleges, not for tests, but for us to become better and more constructive members of the society in the future. I learned gradually that perhaps a language trip to Spain, a music trip to Salzburg, a debate trip to national tournaments in the US can give us a kind of learning experience that is as important as, if not more important than, a lecture at school. Therefore, as my understanding of grades and academics and extracurricular activities starts to change, my definition of a good student changes as well. Now I think that a good student is someone that has a good balance between academic life and his or her passion beyond academics. But really, is that the perfect answer? Is that what a good student would really look like in a perfect world? Going back to my very first metaphor at the start of my speech, if I am that art student that is extremely good at arts but has a low GPA, by the definition that I just gave you, I am still not a good student just because I don't have that kind of good balance between academic and my passions. Then what if your name is not Eming Shyu, and your definition of a good student could just be someone that pursues their passion well? Well, then what about someone that doesn't pursue their passion well? Are they good students? Well, then your definition could just change to someone that tries their best. What I'm getting at is that we can go on and on like this forever and keep changing the definition of what a good student is. Because I think the environment at TAS actually does a pretty good job giving us the freedom to choose what our definition of a good student is. But I think we should sit back and think about this. My former school defines a good student as someone with good grades, or someone with better grades than others. It gives one definition and everybody follows. My experience here at TAS, we have multiple definitions of what a good student is. Mine being someone with a good balance between academics and passion. But there could be multiple definitions. But wait, for the whole time I've been talking about a definition of a good student. The question that I ask, what is a good student, is asking for a definition of a good student. But in a perfect world, do we need a definition? Should there be a definition? Answer is no. Perhaps in a perfect world, we should stop giving good students such judgments. There is no judgment given on a good student, no parameters or definition exerted upon us by anyone or anything. In a perfect world, we don't define students with adjectives. Maybe a good student could just be someone that does well. In a perfect world, instead of categorizing students into different adjectives, maybe we should just look at what they do. In a perfect world, there is no definition of a good student. There are students. There could be students that do well in some areas, and there could be students that do well in other areas. But hey, we students should never be defined, categorized, judged, limited by anyone or anything, our peers, our parents, the society, or even ourselves. In a perfect world, all we need to do is to believe in ourselves And if we think we're good students, we are. Thank you.